Hello, everybody. I'm back again for Toll of the Hounds by Steven Erikson. This will be my reactions, as the screen says. This will be spoilers, unless my video I didn't check. It might be covering up the spoiler section, but yeah, I'm going to be talking about it. I did a mid book or mid series overview, and that did well. I did the seventh book, kind of my reactions, and now this is my reactions to the eighth book, Toll the Hounds. We're approaching the end of the series, and this is my thoughts and opinions on it. Like I said, I'll get into some spoilers. Now, I don't know how you feel about AI and AI art, but this thumbnail was created with AI art. The little images of me and Mike. I'm Tom, and then the Told the Hounds. I put in a prompt that kind of described the pivotal moments in the book, and it came up with this. So let me know what you think about AI art, my creation, the pros and cons. I'm open, but yeah. So Toll of the Hounds, book 8. I think I've kind of gone over my in other videos by my adventure with getting a readable copy. The original one that Amazon sent had pages that were misaligned, so the bottom texts were cut off, and trying to get another copy from Amazon was like pulling teeth. So I ended up going to Barnes and Nobles to actually get a good copy, and I was rung up by a guy that looked like a discount Satanist. He had the long, lanky hair and a pencil thin mustache, and kind of deep, dark, baggy eyes. And he mentioned that it looked like the cover looked like it was a hellhound from Chronicles of Riddick movie. I don't know. I'm still kind of puzzled over that. Maybe I'm not familiar with that series as much as I should be as far as the movies. But enough digging around. Let's talk about Tolls of the Hounds. Coming off the seventh book in the series, Reaper's Gale. I'd heard that Toll of the Hounds was kind of a interesting book, kind of different from the others, and I can see why. It does have it's interesting structure. Um, we are. It also poses the question: can we go home again? Can you go back? We're returning to the city, and then I'll butcher the names. I apologize in advance, but Durkasan, but the original city that the Gardens of the Moon took place, the very first book, we return to that setting, and a lot of the characters that stayed in the city or have returned to the city are spotlighted here. Uh, you know, Cutter, who used to be Crocus, the boy thief who's become an assassin for the gods, he's returning to the city. And the question that's been asked: can you go home again? I think you can. Obviously, they did in this book, but it's much changed. Obviously, we've grown older. Depending on whether or not you read the series when it was coming out, you're now like 9 or 10 years later from when the books were coming out. So you're definitely older. Whereas I'm just a few months back. I started the series mid-year last year. So, but yeah, there's time has passed, and the characters, for the characters, years have passed as well for them, and so yeah, it was kind of interesting to see how that interplayed out with him meeting people that were expecting Crocus, and they got Cutter, who's very much a different person now. He's much more older. He's become an adult, and they immediately feel like they have to treat him, like his former self as a child, but and they're having to reconcile that. But Steven Erikson has a way of uh, kind of challenging what you expect, and that doesn't become the center stage. The drama that surrounds him is meeting what he thought was going to be the love of his life in the very mixed bag of emotions that inspires, and that interplays with other stories within the city. And this book is also very much a tale of two cities. There's the city that we know and love, and then there's the Coral City um, that the test and Edurs are at. That after the battle from the previous books, the memories of ice, they've reconquered that city, and that it's very interesting. I like how Steven Erikson, with many things, he likes to give you kind of a checks and balance, a yin and a yang. The city of Djurgistan is very much a very vibrant and alive city. There's a much joy and anticipation, and in fact, there's like a festival or a fiat that's happening. So everybody's celebrating, and there's just joyous feeling involved, even though there are some dark things and some assassination attempts that are going on in that city. There's that vibrant feel to it. And then the other city, the Coral City, is very much very much a somber tone. There's a kind of a depression going on. Very much, a feeling of like I said, there's like the joy on the one hand and the darkness on the other side, and when you're reading kind of the depressive side of things, where people are dealing with loss and what could have been, or they're maybe they're older and they're kind of reminiscing on their older selves and what they or younger selves and the power they once had. Um, it kind of can weigh you down a little bit during that chapter, and I like how he interplays, cuts back from city to city. So when you're getting this overwhelming kind of depressive feeling in the one city, you didn't jump over to the other city where things are a little bit more lively. People are kind of have a little bit more hope, and whenever you're starting to feel very comfortable with them, then he throws you back into the darkness, so to speak. And in fact, it's a bit literal with the Coral City, with kind of the Teste Edur, with the darkness that covers the city. In fact, and by the time the end of the book, that kind of swaps. There's sort of um, a kind of maybe not a destroying, but there's a tearing apart of the hopefulness of the one city, and then the cloud kind of lifts, so to speak, a little bit. Not figuratively, because the cloud, the darkness does not go away, but there's a lifting of the spirits towards the end. So I like how he likes to balance things out with that. Um, Now, one of the things I was going I the things that I connect. I don't know if there's any influence for Steven Erikson for these literary things, but as I was reading them, they kind of made me trigger on some of the fantasy stuff that I liked in the past. And in fact, one of the main characters that we all know and love, Cutter, is very much the namesake of the lead character in ElfQuest. This is a fantasy I fell in love with when I was much younger. A young lad, I fell in love with the series, and the main character in this is Cutter. Very, very different from the Cutter in the books. So, if anything, maybe he liked the name and picked it up from that. But yeah, so that was that kind of set me off. It kind of touched it off, and anytime I see Cutter's name, it always makes me think a little bit back on that. So maybe just give you a little history on me. But um, Endman Rake, I want to talk about him. He's a big pivotal point of this book, and in fact, I put him on the thumbnail and on my previous thumbnails. I was always very much interested as him as a character, and I always wanted to know more about him. And by the end of this book, as you know, he kind of gives himself to chaos, to rebirth the warren or the land or the that was trapped within his sword, that he had claimed from Draconis. But yeah, um, yeah, that character always left you wanting more, and he was very much. I would say I haven't read anywhere, but I'm very much sure that his inspiration was Elric of Melbonia. I'm pretty sure I'm pronouncing that right. But this is these tell the story of an albino prince of a long ancient forgotten civilization, and he has a sword that eats souls, and Andbanner Rake, in contrast, does not have the albino skin, although one of his brothers do. Um, he has obsidian skin, and but he has the long white hair, and he has a sword that eats souls. And you think, well, in um, you can find also parallels between that Elric's character and other series like The Witcher and Game of Thrones. There's a whole the dragon. People in that series are very reminiscent of the ancient people that Elric comes from, and so I think more or less it's kind of a nod or tip of the hat towards Michael Moorcock and the Elric series, but Steven Erikson would not be Steven Erikson without giving his twist on it, and he creates a character that is his own self, and like I said, he does have some personality traits that are similar to Elric, but he's not ultimately as selfish as Elric is in his book series for the most part. Animator Rake is very much distinctive of his character, and there's a lot of assumptions that you make of that character in Gardens of the Moon that you realize aren't true. That he's much more of a hero and much more nobler, and has goals that are very heroic indeed. And in this book, you get to find that out without ever going much into his head. Every once in a while, Erickson would kind of tip you off, but he's never truly a main character in the series. He's always off at a distance and at a level of respect that all the characters have for him. You never lose that respect. It only grows. And I think it was very smart for him to make you still wanting more even after he's made his great sacrifice. So he's bigger in your head than what you would have had if you were constantly in his head and constantly thinking about his struggles. The fact that he still has that bit of mystery about him is very spot on for this, and makes it really worth reading. And there's so many characters in this book. There's I could spend hours just going over every one of them that I loved. So I won't do that. This is more or less kind of a reaction. But the vibe that I got from this book was okay. Steven Erikson is going to tell you a great story, but he's going to pump the brakes. There's not going to be nonstop action, but he's going to introduce a handful of characters, some that you know and love, and some that are new to you, but have been in the city forever, for the most part. And he plays with these. Even there's like a serial killer that's going through this book and killing off various people. And it's interesting that he's placing all these threads throughout the book, and it's nice how he ties them all together for the most part. And there's this great resolution at the end, and a great epic ending to it that halfway, as you're reading through the book, you're wondering, okay, I'm enjoying the book, but where's this going? For most of his books, the end goal of the book, whereas you kind of have a idea of what's going on, and in the book, there's always a group of characters that are on a quest, and very much traditional to a fantasy series. You got to have a quest, but he kind of plays with that. These, you know, they're usually like a hearty, wholesome group of people that kind of support each other and kind of play off of each other, and and their group as a whole ends up overcoming the overwhelming darkness at the end of the book. Whereas this isn't always the case. A lot of times, his characters that are in this quest are kind of nagging at each other, don't get along, and in fact, a lot of them end up dead by the end of the book. Whereas this book has there's a group of Tiste Edur that have been traveling for a book and a half to meet up with their father, Animander Rake, and much like his other books, they get to their goal, but end up dads in getting killed off in the other city that they had previously been at. So, but that really wasn't what in a sense what they needed. By the end of the book, they've come into their own, um, and in it. I love how all the various strings and various details eventually play out. And I loved reading Namander and his uh, fellow travelers, brothers and sisters, how they their journey and how dark it gets. There's almost this kind of Lovecraftian, um, eldritch kind of feeling to it when they go to that town where there's all those people put up like scarecrows, draped in a white cloth with the black blood or goop or whatever it is kind of draining from their orifices underneath the cloth, and just seeing rows and rows of those people, and then getting into town and they're drinking this black sludge that turns out to be a dying god's blood. I mean, there's just the imagery. I love Erikson's imagery. This just kind of conjures up kind of this really dark world. He knows how to paint the pictures without over explaining. I know some authors, um, namely, I had trouble reading Anne Rice because she would spend so much time describing what was going on that you would just wanted to get to the action. And Erikson knows the balance between giving you of enough details to paint a picture in your head, but not enough to clutter it and distract you from the action. He's very cognizant that he's telling an adventure story, an epic adventure story, but a adventure story that needs to constantly engage the reader, but also provide them with the tools that they need to build the city or build the image in their mind. But yeah, I just love it, and he knows how to use everything. He knows how to create the characters, make them interesting, make them fun, and make them very interactive. And when they need to be funny, they are. And so even in the darkest moments of the book, there's sometimes a big laugh or kind of a releasing of it of tension, because you need that. You can't be, everybody had that emo phase where they listen to dark goth music and try to be as dark as they can be, and that could be a bit weary. It could be wearisome to that person and the people around them. So he knows that you can't be too depressive in a book. You have to lighten the mood occasionally to kind of bring that balance. He's very, very cognizant of balance and making sure, if you pull here, you gotta let go here, and I just love that about this book. And then just to touch upon I like the city life of Jajursistan. Again, I'm probably mispronouncing that. And if you want to, in the comments, tell me how to properly say it. I'll correct it for future videos. But I love that city. There's like a liveliness to it, and all the characters that interact there, like the retired bridge burners. It was fun going back to those characters because you know them, you love them. They have these assassins that are after them, and that makes a very impactful halfway point for the book when they have that final confrontation with the assassins. That is amazing, and so you are wondering at that point how the end of the book's going to play out, because you also have those spirits in the sword, those lost souls that are trapped in the sword. You're talking about he's talking about them, and you have Namander and his group of people being led by Clip to Coral City, and you have all these strings, and you're wondering, okay, what is Animander Rake? What's his role in this? And, Shadow Throne and Cotillion. What are they doing? What things are they manipulating? But yeah, all of those elements. Some of them you know, some of them you're speculating, some of them you don't know. They all play out wonderfully at the end of this book. A very satisfying end of the book. But just to get back to the point that I wanted to make, I did really enjoy the life of the city and the telling of the small stories that ended up playing a part for the final thing at the end. But in and of themselves were fun to read. And they did remind me, and I don't know if Erikson read this back in his youth, but I read this book series called Thieves' World, which was a collection of short stories that all took place in this corrupt town or city that had all these cutthroat thieves and prostitutes and brothels and various ne'er do wells, so to speak. But it was a bunch of short stories, all written by different authors. So they had their own characters that they would, and it was a book series. So those authors would write a story for each book, and they had certain characters that were their core characters that they told stories about throughout the book. But the cool thing was, each author had their core characters, but they could interact, and I'm sure there was kind of like a bible to the book of how the world was set up, and they knew how the stories were playing out between each character. So you would see one character from one story and the other, and it was kind of interesting to see how that played out. But that whole world, and it was very unique for me for a fantasy series. It was very unique. That it was a fantasy, but there wasn't this big quest. It was just enjoying the lives of these people and the fascinating, weird and dangerous world that they lived in. And obviously, as the series goes on, and if it doesn't have a clear direction, it kind of spreads out. And there was like books. Some of the authors went on to write novels about their characters, and it kind of petered out towards. But there was like I think it went over 10 books in the series. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, if I know it may be hard to track down, but if that sounds interesting to you, and you are a fan of Erikson's, I think you might find something to enjoy from the Thieves World. Um, but yeah, those were my recommendations. If you haven't read anything of Michael Moore, the Elric books are great, and ElfQuest does deal with some adult themes, and even though it kind of looks cartoonish, things can get dark, but it's more of a light, more traditional kind of a fantasy series. It's done by Wendy and Richard Penny, and actually, there's going to be a TV series based off of that. It's in the works. I don't know. I think it's been greenlit, but it's not officially put on the slate for being on TV. But yeah, hopefully everything works out. And but the pilot has been greenlit, so maybe we'll see a TV series on that in the near future. But again, just to get back to Toll of the Hounds, excellent book. As the books go on, I used to have clear favorites for me, but this the latest and greatest, I guess, is happening to me because this book is all I can think about for right now, and all the other books pale in comparison. So, but once I finish the series, maybe I'll have to reevaluate things. But I've just started. I'm 100 pages into Dust of Dreams. I know these final two books, Dust of Dreams and The Crippled God, both of these are unlike the other ones in that the other ones told a clear story from beginning to end, and this one's sort of like a one book split into two, and so that the prologues in Dust of Dreams, and then it kind of ends after part four, and then this book and Crippled Gods picks up with the first part of it, and then that at the end of it is the epilogues, and it looks like from the I looked at the page and there's like two different epilogues. So again, no spoilers in the comments because I haven't read them yet. Just 100 pages into Dust of Dreams, but it's kind of bittersweet. I'm glad to be actually finishing the series after so long, and I know from previous discussions, there's several other books in the Malazan world that I'm definitely going to be reading. I don't know if I'll take a break or not. I have picked up the first book of Ian C. Ellison's or Etchelson's book. Uh, that that first book that he wrote in the series. So I'm definitely going to be reading that one. But yeah, I'm still deep into this world, and I still don't have I haven't reached my cap yet. Sometimes once I get certain, yeah, I get my feel of something, and then it's like, okay, it's a hard stop. Okay, I've had enough. Don't need any more. But I'm about to finish the series, and I still want more. So I'm definitely going to broaden myself out to maybe the prequels, the sequels, in the Malazan Book of the Fallen World. I'm just and I know I think there's two different ways you could say Malazan. I don't know which one's the right way, but I've heard people. I've started watching. I've kind of stayed away from various people's reviews of it since I'm going to be. I did this video and the previous ones, and then I don't know if I'll do one specifically for Dust of Dreams and then the Cripple Gods, or do them both together. I'll see how I feel at the end of Dust of Dreams, but I may wait to just do a book or a video over the two books. But yeah, tell me what you think. Also, as a side note, one of the comments that I got from a previous video was a fellow metalhead, a black metal fan, that's kind of complimented, saying, it's great to see that there's other black metal fans out there that are that also like Steven Erikson's book, especially since the band Kaladin Broads out there and maybe pulled some fans over to the books. But I've been listening to a lot of black metal while I read the books because that dark, somber tone of the music really fits well for me personally as I read the book. And the two artists that I listened to the most during Toll of the Hounds um, was the band Malist. If you look at the name of it, that's if you're not familiar with black metal bands, that it's traditional to make the name of the band unreadable. Basically, it's to start with when black metal started out, they all wanted to be deeply underground, and they didn't want to get exposed. So the least they didn't want their name, even their name of the band, to really get out there and be a promotional aspect of them. So they wanted to make it incomprehensible. But the band's Malist. They're from Russia. I don't know much about them. I just love the music. So if there's something bad about this band that I don't know about, let me know. Let me know if I shouldn't be promoting them. That's. But from what I could tell and from the lyrics that I've read from them, it doesn't sound all that There's not like some um, darkness outside their image. about them. And the other band that I listened to a lot was Holder, Hulder. But yeah, they kind of have sort of a um, interesting mix of very atmospheric kind of sounding music with the black metal. It makes it kind of a little bit more grander sounding, which kind of again plays well with Toll The Hounds as I read it. But those are my two recommendations as far as music. If you're into black metal, if you're not and you listen to something else, let me know in the comments. Let us know what you like listening to. If you like listening to music while you read, I know some people need complete silence. I kind of like mood music if I can find it. Sometimes books just don't favor well towards listening to music, and I have to read them silently. But yeah, if I can find the great soundtrack to listen to while I read a book, that sometimes enhances the situation. So I think I might have run a little long on this one, but yeah, I had a lot to say about it. Again, our channel is the first, the last of Nerdom. I'm usually here with Mike, and sometimes we have a guest on. Jay is our has become our standby as a guest every now and then. Our last video with him, where we talked about Batman manga, did astronomically well and lots of views, and we got a lot of subscribers. So if you're watching, if you're a new subscriber watching this, hey, thanks for being there. But I know this video being a spoiler-ridden one, it's only going to cater to people that have read the book or maybe are kind of interested and don't mind being spoiled. Or just like to hear me talk, which is, I don't know, it seems a little weird to me. But anyway, great, great being here with you again, and keep reading that fantasy. And if you have another, and since I'm getting towards the end of the series, I'll be looking for a new fantasy series. So if you like Steven Erikson and you've read something similar to his style, go ahead and recommend it in our comments. I'm sure other readers would be interested as well. But I'm Tom from the First, Last, and Nerdom, and I'm out.